Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Thursday morning to you all. Hope everyone is doing awesome out there this morning and having a fantastic start to your Thursday and a great week out there so far as we're drawing to the end of it, almost to that weekend. I know for me, I have a lot planned this weekend. First free weekend in a while. We have a little bit of a break from soccer this weekend, kind of our spring break, if you will. So going to use the time to clean up the yard and all those good things and just utilize the time wisely. But here to figure out what's going to happen weather-wise for your Thursday. So we'll speak on that. We continue to deal with this interior New England winter storm. It's been a wild one. You guys will have to let me know your totals that you end up getting with this storm once it's all said and done. We'll give you some updated information for you folks up there in like New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, as far as what's to come as today's kind of day one of this storm system for you folks as far as precipitation. We'll speak on some northwest flow energy that continues to pivot from the northeast and bring snow showers as far south as the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee. We'll speak on that. Middle of the country pretty quiet. Not going to stay very long on that, but I do think the middle of the country will get quite active over the next few days. And then the western U.S., today's sort of day one of a storm system we will be discussing for the foreseeable future. And so after we get done talking about today's forecast out west, we will jump into what's to come into this weekend, into early next week. And yes, we will have a I guess I would say it's not an actual solid forecast, but we will have you another cloud forecast right at the end of this video. But I'm going to have a special video talking about that maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow night. I don't want to promise any videos in the evenings anymore because things change quickly, but we will give you some information at the very end of this video talking about a cloud forecast on what we're expecting for that total eclipse this coming Monday, April the 8th. So we'll speak on that. We'll talk about the impacts from this storm system that's to come, at least possible impacts. Severe weather will be another big topic, and there will be an area in the northern plains we'll have to watch out for a winter storm. So a lot to talk about. Continues to be a lot to talk about. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And I just want to thank y'all for 70,000 subscribers. Hit that a few days ago. You know, March was so slow and started April off very quick. And quickly had one of my biggest couple videos that I've seen in like almost a month, about 5 weeks. So things popped off very quick, and obviously it's because we had all this severe weather. So thank y'all for 70K, on the road to 100K by the end of the year. So I really appreciate the support and all the love in this family type atmosphere on this channel. Let me quit yapping my jaw and let's start talking about the weather. If you guys got anything I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling. All right. There's all that winter weather in the northeast. There's that northwest flow energy, bringing some snow to the higher elevations of West Virginia, even a little snow in Virginia, and even some snow showers, you know, over like 4,000, 4,500 feet up or so. Maybe some snow mixing in at the lower levels too, for sure. In fact, I heard around the Waynesville area last night, got some flakes mixing in, so that's much lower in elevation, but it's an all-out April winter storm in the interior northeast, that's for sure. Even had some, I think we had a wintry mix even around the Boston area earlier this morning. So continue to deal with a little bit of wraparound moisture into the Great Lakes region. Middle of the country, very quiet, not a drop or flake or anything on radar. Western U.S., we're starting to have a upper trough that's moving in. This is bringing lower pressure, which is bringing energy out west, so we'll speak on this. I do want to let you guys know while I'm talking here, if you see me sneeze, you see my face make any weird gestures or anything like that, allergies are kicking my rear end right now, so I might sneeze in this video. Might have to pause a little bit, so I do apologize for that ahead of time. Could get some thunderstorms, kind of a convective feed from this lower pressure over like the mid-Atlantic areas of the southern northeast, if you will. So Ohio Valley could get some storms that are capable of producing some small hail, really anywhere in the Midwest, Ohio Valley, all the way down to the southern Alps region. A lot of cold air aloft, so hail is going to easily be obtained in this area. Some thunderstorms are possible, especially this morning in the southern tip of Florida, and could have some strong to severe storms from, you know, extreme northern Nevada through a very small stripe through the Idaho Valley, all the way up here into Great Falls, Montana. So there's a level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather. So we could have a general risk of thunderstorms pretty much in all these light green areas out west. Excessive rainfall outlook, nothing to speak on. We're done with a really heavy rainfall for at least a few days. So below 5%, doesn't even show up on the map. Watches, warnings, and advisories. Winter storm warnings continuing up here in the northeast. Winter weather advisories are in the purple color. Winter storm warnings are in the a pink color. So, I mean, some areas are getting blizzard conditions up here. Very high winds this morning that you're dealing with. It's an all-out nor'easter, something that we really never truly got the entire winter season, and we're getting as we are getting into April now. So, wind advisories for northern Georgia, red flag warnings for Alabama, starting to get kind of dry, a little bit of a fire danger, winter weather advisories for the high country of North Carolina and the Smokies and places like this around like the Tennessee side of the mountains. Winter storm warnings up for the higher elevations of West Virginia. One county has a winter weather advisory in Maryland, freeze warnings, and Missouri, red flag warnings in the high plains right into here. This brown color is high wind watches. A big system moving it, so there's a lot of alerts for winds. High wind warnings here in this mustard color in the counties of Nevada, winter weather advisories in the northern counties of Nevada, winter weather advisories up for even some of the coastal ranges in California. Sierra Nevada, winter storm warnings up in northern Cal. So a lot of weather on the way. Again, winter storm watch has already been issued for another system on the way this weekend for areas of Wyoming, Bighorn Mountains, and the Black Hills region. So a lot coming up. I'm not going to compare it or not compare it to, what we just dealt with, but it could trend to a higher end scenario. That's why we got to watch. So, Tropical Tidbits is having some issues this morning, so I'm not able to show the HRRR model on all these runs, but the southeast, most of the southeast is really nice weather today. You're just going to be much chillier. We're going to get that snow in the higher elevations of the southern Alps. As you see up there, you see splotches of blue. We're going to get some sporadic showers throughout Kentucky, cool showers, some sleet could mix in, but we start to get into this evening and then all the way into the overnight hours into tomorrow morning. Not a whole lot going on except some rain and snow showers continuing up here in the higher elevations of the southern Alps. And we'll take a closer look at this. And here it comes, Boone could get some snow showers this morning, this afternoon, certainly in the higher elevations of West Virginia, western Maryland. This will start to add up several inches of snow. Somebody can get a foot of snow in the higher elevations of West Virginia with this. But this will continue. You'll continue just to get impulses of energy even into this evening to the overnight hours. Maybe even the Cumberland Plateau could get a little bit of snow shower activity. Very possible. Eastern higher hills and higher mountains of southeast Kentucky, southwestern Virginia, certainly we'll get maybe just some snow kind of drifting around for your early April. So it'll do it again tomorrow, especially up in West Virginia where the snow could really pick up tomorrow in the higher elevations of West Virginia. But once again, it'll start doing it. If you're heading up to the mountains today for maybe like a 3-day trip or something, it's going to be chilly. Dress like it's winter. But snowfall between now and Saturday morning.
Look at this area right into here. That's snow pushing over a half a foot to over 8, 9, 10 inches in these higher elevated regions here, like 3,500, 4,000 feet up in the higher elevations of West Virginia. Same kind of deal down here in North Carolina and Tennessee, even Virginia a little bit. The Smokies could get a few inches of snow easily. Roan Mountain could get a slushy inch or so. Maybe you already have it. I'm not sure. Let me know. But certainly expecting this up here. Now, the Northeast dealing with an all-out winter storm this morning. Not everybody, of course, but the interior areas. This is really starting to take over Maine now, and we continue to move this throughout midday. This is around lunchtime. You'll start to mix along the coastal regions of Maine and New Hampshire. Some of this back-end energy with a little cold air wrapping around was starting to mix you guys to snow, like in the Worcester Hills and the Berkshires and even northern Connecticut. Boston begins to get this dry slide around this afternoon, but you continue to get this feed kind of wrapping behind this, like where, like Pennsylvania could start to get some rain showers mixing with some snow, maybe some burst of snow in like western PA, certainly more scattered about here in the southern tier of New York. But if you look up here, I will be interested to see later on this evening if you guys could get a burst of snow in Boston. You have to let me know. But look at this dry slide heading right into, all the way up into central Maine. And then everybody could switch back to snow. They kind of switched to rain or either started drying out tomorrow morning. And you'll continue just to get, you got a lot of energy in the atmosphere. You're under a huge area of low pressure, a lot of energy in the atmosphere. Midday tomorrow, you'll get another day. And this could be more lake enhanced off Erie and Ontario into New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, more scattered about nature out here, but more just heavy snow up here in Maine. You continue to get this,
And kind of one last hurrah overnight tomorrow night into Saturday morning for Maine, as snow could fall pretty heavily. And it's still snowing in the southern tier of New York, eastern PA, as we're getting into like the middle of the night Friday. Here comes the sneeze trying to do its best to come. All right, Saturday morning. This is between now and Saturday morning, 48 hours. Another several inches to over a foot possible in the Adirondacks, even Green and White Mountains. Berkshire's a few inches of snow, all the way down to like the Worcester Hills region. I mean, I mentioned this and I had a comment that said, thanks, for mentioning that area. I mean, yeah, everybody pronounces it different. We're not going to get into that again. I already probably have my folks up in New England laughing at me about it. But 500, 1,000, 1,500 feet makes a massive difference. Massive difference. And you could definitely get a couple inches of snow over the next 48 hours for sure. Scattered about here in the southern tier, and then we move up into, let's see. Let me find Maine. Here we go. Move up to Maine. Certainly, Maine's going to continue to get, depending on where you are, several inches to over a foot. Just depends on where you are. I'm not going to pull up every single graphic like before. No freezing rain really expected with this, but I will mention, guys, some areas will certainly see some sleet mixing in with some of the snow. That's for sure. So winds, they're gusting really strong right now, but they will continue to be very strong throughout the next 24 hours, gusting in southern New England all the way to 40, 50 miles per hour Boston, especially these higher peaks like Mount Washington. I mean, you guys are notorious for getting record-breaking wind gust up here. It's going to be very strong up here. Just your classic nor'easter. If you live up against and tucked up against the bay regions, the ocean, certainly going to be stronger winds, pushing tropical storm force winds for sure, if not more. Cape Cod's going to be rocking today if they're not already. So, my folks up in Canada, snow beginning to move, I believe. They should be into like western Nova Scotia right now. It'll continue to snow heavily through this afternoon. Snow moving into New Brunswick, especially southern New Brunswick. Could mix for a time. And then you're probably going to switch to all rain where it was snowing in like western Nova Scotia. Some of these inland areas could stay snow for longer. Probably more of a mix up here in like Cape Breton Island and Prince Edward Island. I always want to say it's like St. John Island or something. But you start to get into this evening, snowing pretty heavily in central to northern New Brunswick, Quebec, starting to get a lot of snow up here, depending on where you are. And this is when you try to start to mix the more snow like at Cape Breton Island. Certainly looks like it switches y'all to some snow like later on tonight to tomorrow morning. But the low is just not in a favorable spot. If you want snow, you definitely need this low over here with more cold air coming on top. So you switch to rain in southern New Brunswick, start to get more sporadic energy throughout Nova Scotia tomorrow evening. Snowing pretty heavy up there in Quebec. And then you kind of get a dry period sometime late tomorrow night into Saturday morning. And then as we get deeper into Saturday, it starts to either rain or snow again, depending on where you are. And finally, as we get into our Sunday afternoon, this kind of gets pushed off to the south. So how much snow? Well, I know you guys go off centimeters. I think northern New Brunswick's going to be the jackpot area with this. Western Nova Scotia, you guys could get a quick 15 to 25 centimeters of snow today before switching to rain. The ensemble really likes hitting like the northern sections of Cape Breton Island pretty hard. I'm not sure what they're calling for locally in this region, in these areas, but this is just the European ensemble. Northern New Brunswick could get, over 30 centimeters of snow, over a foot of snow. It's certainly likely. But I mean, even going for some snow down here in southern New Brunswick in these areas. So certainly could get half a foot depending on where you are. That's for sure. So, winds will be pretty gusty. I'll show you a quick wind graphic in this region. I know you'll go off kilometers per hour. And this is what it's showing for this off the European ensemble. You could get some gusts pushing over 100 kilometers per hour in western Nova Scotia. This is probably kind of happening right now. It's probably starting to pick up. But, I mean, scattered areas of 50 to 80 kilometers per hour, especially in, like, western New Brunswick. And very windy just across Nova Scotia. So, definitely hunker down. Big storm moving in. All right, south central U.S. Not a whole lot to speak on. Very quiet weather, very dry. There's a fire danger here in western Texas and areas of New Mexico, so please be wary of that. But, we start to get into this evening, into the overnight hours, all the way into tomorrow morning, guys. There's a
not a whole lot going on at all. It'd be nice and warm, especially the further west you work. Temperatures are definitely rebounding quickly today, but there's not a whole lot to speak on from our friends down here in the plains and south central U.S. Up here in the Great Lakes region, snow will continue to drift around this morning, but it will quickly, I would say, dissipate and weaken. The energy will weaken. We get into this afternoon, some showers will drift into the Ohio Valley, Midwest region. Could get some more snow flying around in kind of eastern, lower Michigan. And then the UP and Michigan could get kind of some Lake Superior enhanced moisture that kind of flows and, starts to affect areas of the UP and Michigan, especially the western UP. Could add in an additional couple inches of snow up here. Just some flurries throughout tomorrow morning. Certainly possible downstream of Lake Superior. So don't really have a graphic for how much more snow you're expecting in this region, but you're certainly at the last gasp of this storm. So, hang in there if you're not a big snow fan. But the western U.S., there's a lot of moisture that's really going to move in over the next several hours. There's moisture out there already, but as you can tell, a big slug of moisture starts to slam the central California coastline basically from northern California all the way to central California. It'll start to snow pretty good in the Cascades of Oregon and Washington, especially southern Washington, really mainly. And then we'll start to get, some pretty heavy snow in the Sierra Nevada. And this will bring a pocket of cold air, just like most areas of low pressure do. So you'll even try to, mix with some snow in some of these coastal range regions. But this will continue to spin around. You'll get kind of waves of moisture. Could start to get some showers as far south as LA, maybe even San Diego, all the way kind of like later this evening. Not a huge deal at all, but, as you start to get into the overnight hours, you are dealing with more consolidated rain and snow up here, depending on your elevation. Same thing with western Idaho. And then you start to get into tomorrow morning, and we'll start to just get kind of rounds of showers and thunderstorms that kind of ride down the California coastline. And you'll just kind of get bursts. No really consistent rains falling, just kind of rounds, very sporadic. And, things will probably try to pick back up later into the weekend. But this takes us all the way out to about late Friday afternoon, Friday evening. And we're just getting scattered moisture throughout the western U.S. Nothing too crazy, but certainly going to be some gusty winds. And, this is just precipitation between now and Friday evening. Some of this is snow, obviously. But, you look down here. Let's see, for example, down here in California, certainly between now and Saturday evening, maybe a tenth to a quarter inch of rain. Friday evening, San Diego. That area, LA, maybe a little bit less, and you go up to San Francisco, over a quarter inch to maybe a half inch of rain possible. Certainly more enhanced when it pushes up some of these higher elevations up against the central California coastline. But, a lot of this will be snow in the Sierra Nevada. Depending on your elevation, feet of snow expected. I'm surprised they don't have winter storm warnings out, to be honest with you, but they're the experts for a reason, so they know what to do. But Rockies, as far as snow, and we should probably just look at the western U.S. This is what it's looking like. Just higher elevation snow. Starting to get later in the year, you got to get further and further up there to actually get appreciable snowfall. So, as far as winds, though, I do want to show you this. And we're going to just take this all. Well, no, let's just take it all the way to Saturday morning. Excuse me. Gusty winds for sure coming. Nothing too crazy along the coastal regions, 20, 30 mile per hour wind gusts, but, Nevada is going to get a pretty stout wind event over the next 48 hours. 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts, very gusty in Las Vegas, very strong winds in the Sierra Nevada, pushing over hurricane force winds. And certainly look in the Four Corners regions, guys. Very, very strong winds in Arizona, especially northeast Arizona. Pretty much all of Utah and Colorado and New Mexico. Even up into Wyoming. Very, very strong winds expected over the next 48 hours with this upper trough moving in. So definitely be aware of that. Temperatures, man, check this out. You can tell what the trough is, right? Temperatures are much lower in the Great Lakes region, Ohio Valley, northeast. Much chillier conditions. This is affecting the southeast, just bringing chillier air only in the 60s. It'll feel much drier today. But once you get out the influence of this trough, much warmer temperatures for the plains, especially the southern plains, and then the high plains. It's kind of in between both troughs, so you're getting a kind of a ridge influence, so it's going to probably get all the way up into the low 80s, all the way up to Montana today. Much cooler conditions in the west because you got energy moving in. So, and speaking of energy, you know, this is for tomorrow morning in the blue. That's lower pressure. There's that ridge that's bringing the warmer air into the kind of the high plains region. And then there's the lower pressure, the energy we're dealing with right now that's, you know, bringing all this weather for the Northeast all the way down the southern apps. So what happens here is this is going to influence our eclipse too. Okay, what happens here is this lower pressure with energy kind of pivoting around the trough will eventually slowly get out the picture. And this will more so enter the picture. Now this ridge will also kind of shift eastward. Everything's shifting eastward. So ridge is bringing probably more calmer, warmer than average temperatures, the blues, bringing lower pressure, more active, unsettled weather. So what's going to happen is it's going to continue to bring a lot of unsettled weather. And this trough actually goes what looks like negatively tilted. So we're getting the Saturday afternoon. This is bringing a lot of lower pressure over the central Rockies, and we're probably going to get some sort of storms firing up along this. We're still dealing with this lower pressure right here, and this is actually affecting this somewhat. We'll speak on that more here in a second. As we start to get into a Sunday, the day before the eclipse, this trough fully looks like it ejects. Then this is probably going to pull up a lot of low-level moisture right into this region right into here. Probably some sort of significant storm system right into here. How significant, not sure. How much does this influence the moisture return? Not completely sure, but I do think this is further away to not influence it too much. But then we start to get into our morning of the eclipse. Lower pressure right here, just because you don't see lower pressure right in here, the blues. Typically, kind of separation between the oranges and the blues is where you got a lot of weather also. Also in the immediate blues, unsettled weather too. Typically, this is right where energy rides in. So we all know that the total eclipse starts down here as far as the lower 48, around early afternoon Monday. So what do we have going on? It's a big question. One thing that I like to see for the eclipse is for you folks up in the Northeast, which historically around this time of the year can be very cloudy, Great Lakes region, Ohio Valley, is you got ridging in place. This could create more stable, calmer conditions, which you might have more clear skies. So, and, you know, we're spending a little bit too long on this about the eclipse, but basically let's focus on the storm side of this. And, you know, as we start to get into Tuesday, this fully cuts off and continues to bring weather down here. We just got to figure out what kind of weather. And if you look at this as far as the precipitation map, guys, we'll continue just to deal with lower pressure over here. A lot of energy kind of flying around, affecting the Northeast. But, you know, as we get into our Friday, a lot of energy out west. You see the blues, higher elevation snow, lower elevation rain. All this kind of shifts to the east. Saturday morning, we'll probably get a snow, a lot of snow in the Rockies, Wyoming, the central Rockies, just in general. And then we start to get, and let's just go on and zoom into this. We start to get into the middle of the country. This is Saturday afternoon, 986 millibar low, ejecting into Nebraska. This is probably bringing storms right in here. Probably a dry line setup. How much is what is your moisture return going to be like? I don't think it'll be very high. But that's a pretty powerful storm right over the middle of the country, bringing some heavy snow. There's already winter storm watches ahead for this in this region right in here in the northern high plains. At the same time, could have another additional low here. And we're getting into Sunday. And then we get into Monday. Now, this is when you see all the green down here. This is the day of our eclipse. This is probably in the form of showers and storms. Really close to the path of totality. Okay, so you got to watch that. And then we get into our Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon. A lot more moisture. More ample amount of low-level moisture starting to ride into the deep south. This is probably going to bring showers and storms also. So let's just stop there. The snow signal from this, and we'll briefly go over this. There it is, moving across the Rockies. And then it really kind of enhances right here in Wyoming, western South Dakota, western Nebraska, even in southeastern Montana. Well, I do think we could have a high-impact winter storm in this region, but then it really fizzles apart. Maybe another signal right into here, into the southern Rockies, then that fizzles. Okay, what about the severe weather side of this? This is starting off Saturday midday. Okay, look at this low-level moisture riding in. But guys, these are only dew points in the 50s and 40s. But I will remind you, in the plains, you don't need dew points in the 60s and 70s.
It's much different in this area. What people probably don't realize geographically is you steadily gain elevation the further west you work, even if you're not driving through mountains. It's basically a big plateau in the middle of the country that steadily, if on average, gains elevation. So the higher up you are, the moisture at the surface is just different. We'll go into that at a different time. But to wrap that up, you just don't need as high-end dew points for severe weather in the plains. So you're going to have this little slither of dew points into the 50s. I do think this will be a huge factor in limiting any kind of super severe weather Saturday. But you do already have that marginal risk, which I'll show you here in a second. You get into Sunday, it gets kind of weird. You got moisture down here, but there's kind of an influence between the trough still in place over here and the one moving in. A cold front will advance and kind of weaken. But then as we get into Monday morning, look at this rich moisture building into basically the southeastern half of Texas. Dew points creeping into the 60s to 70s along the Gulf coastline of Texas. Dew points, just basically the entire western deep south has dew points into the 60s. Now you notice there's still some dry air over the southeast. There's still lower pressure off the coast of the eastern U.S., still kind of bringing a cooler, drier supply of air. But you start to get into Monday and Monday afternoon, and definitely a moist environment down here. Getting to Tuesday, this moist sector builds. Thermodynamics are there for severe weather, and it builds even more as we get into Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening. Dew points are creeping into the 60s as far north as like Illinois. Okay, and I do think we need to watch as we get into our Wednesday too, and then eventually our Thursday and Friday morning. What about kinematics? Well, with basically this trough that's going to be negatively tilted, this is definitely going to bring that mid-level flow that's favorable for lift for thunderstorms right over the middle of the country for Saturday. It's around Saturday midday. So you can check that off the box for lift for thunderstorms and certainly a flow that could produce some gusty winds. It gets kind of weird when we get into Sunday. Sunday's kind of a day where kind of a cold front can mess some things up. But then we get into Monday, day of our eclipse. Certainly this belt, a mid-level flow, creating plenty of lift, kind of overlapping a very moist environment right into here. So you're probably going to get severe weather right into here. A little bit further north up here, you probably got too much dry, cool air. But down here, that is not the case. I just showed you those dew points, which were higher down here. And then we get into our Tuesday. And, yeah, we got to watch severe weather for this day, too. This kind of upper trough kind of gets pinched off. It looks like it's being pinched off at this point. This is still spinning around and bringing that mid-level flow out the southwest right into this region, aiding and kind of increasing and kind of more amplifying that moist sector into this region. And, of course, we got to get into Wednesday, too, and things can just get a little bit more weirder after that. But what we do know from the Storm Prediction Center is that for day 3, for our Saturday, marginal risk. That's all we got right now. Level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather from Nebraska down to Oklahoma. Okay? And then we start to get into our Sunday. Predictability too low. There's some questions on Sunday. I think that's kind of a middle ground period. Day 5, already a slight risk from Monday, the day of the eclipse. The path of totality goes right through this 15% risk area, guys. So, one of the things that was going to be interesting is the fact that this eclipse is in the middle pretty much of severe weather season in the spring. And everybody was always kind of joking around wondering, are we going to have a severe weather outbreak? It's nothing to joke about, but are we going to have severe weather on the day of the eclipse? It's looking like we are, right in the southern half of the path of totality. Now, what exactly is going to happen? We got to figure that one out. But it's going to be wild figuring this one out for sure. This is going to be heavily talked about. But, northeast Texas, southeast Oklahoma, southwest Arkansas, and northwest Louisiana, 15% risk of severe weather, level 2 out of 5 risk. And then day 6, which it looks like it barely moves, and it really doesn't. A lot of moist air still in place. Mid-level flow still riding over this area, a little bit different of a tilt, but still there. And another day of severe weather, basically in the same spot as possible. Now, this is going to tweak to the west and the east some, north, south maybe, but we got to watch. Last thing I'll show you, which is probably a fan favorite, and Pivotal Weather has done a heck of a job creating a totally different section on their site. It is a paid subscription, guys, but Pivotal weather is very cheap. It's under $10 a month. And I definitely recommend it. I think it is. It's like $9.99. But the path of totality, obviously in the red. And they are saying in Texas, now that's not what they're saying. Let me reiterate that. This is the GFS ensemble. This is going to change. There's different models you can look at up here. But the latest ensemble guidance is saying, and confidence is increasing on this, we're close enough to it, that you're going to have to deal with a lot of cloud cover potentially over Texas, even into Arkansas. But this is going to kind of let up into the Midwest and Ohio Valley. And there's a chance, you folks up here in the Adirondacks, northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, you might actually be on the best side of this. So we'll talk more on this in a separate video, but this is the latest prediction from the GFS ensemble. That's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and have a wonderful day.